Welcome, everyone. I'm Jill O'Hara, the Director of Community Outreach for Colton's Journey to Liberation. And today we have Jerianne Klein with us, who is a facilitator for Smart Recovery. Welcome, Jerianne.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Colton's Journey, for inviting me here to discuss the Smart Recovery Program and the component that I bring to the community as a volunteer. I am camping, so this is my camper. I do have to throw that out there.
That's okay. We're just glad you're here. It's good that you get to enjoy your camping.
Yes.
Okay, so a little bit about Smart Recovery to start with. As you've told me, it's an evidence-based program.
Yes.
Do you want to go into that just a little bit?
Well, I'm a facilitator, so I'm not a therapist. So again, we say in our opening statement not to misconstrue the meeting as professional therapy. With that being said, we utilize REBT, Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy. I do training. We use non-confrontational motivational interviewing. We also utilize components of cognitive behavioral therapy or training. And there's some components of DBT, which is dialectic behavioral training I do. We also accept people medically assisted treatment. Some, there's harm reduction components that some people choose to use for their recovery. So people are welcome in all stages of recovery, or if they're considering to enter into some form of recovery. So it's a lot different than what most people are used to.
Right. Well, and that's the thing I would like to mention that, again, here at Colton's Journey, we're a hub, a resource hub, okay? And the reason we ask you on, because your program is different. It does not fall within the traditional treatment realm, but it is also another option. And Colton's Journey, we do promote that there's different pathways for different people. And what works for one may not work for another. So I thought it was important to get out the information that you have about your program to just, again, give people an opportunity to potentially explore other options. Now, you told me this program has been around for 25 years. It's a non-for-profit, which means that people are not required to make a payment.
Correct. Meetings are free. It is ran by trained volunteers. So the facilitators go through an online training to be able to bring the program to their individual community. There are multiple meetings around Western New York. Each person, each trained facilitator will probably bring their own component of their area and themselves. So no two meetings are ever alike. So it's really important to try a few, see how well it works for you. If it's something that you're interested in, it can work very well with traditional therapies. It works well with other programs. Or it can work as a standalone. Again, the focus is peer-based self-support. So it is really about people coming to the point of understanding themselves and to really sort through what other people are telling them, or even beliefs that they may hold on to about themselves personally. So we do take time to explore everybody where they're at. We meet people where they're at and help them sort themselves, find their own answers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And I do, hear you say that it's a self-assessment program. So you're working with the people, but how well the program works for them is really based upon how much they're willing to put into it. Is that correct?
Well, I think whether somebody just sits and listens and observes, because participation is not required. I think people walk away from each meeting with more than they walked in with. So I find that because it is a goal-oriented program, we focus in on positive steps that of things that are in our control to change to make our lives better.
Mm-hmm.
Most people walk away feeling better, like they've gleaned something from the meeting, and they have something. I hand out worksheets. Not all facilitators do, but I tend to do that, and you will have it in your own writing. Whether you choose to write it down or just think about it, that's really up to you. I can't say what success for an individual really is. I mean, that's not my decision to make. I don't really know what somebody is really looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I can help them find it
Right.
through motivational interviewing and our tips and our tools. And there are workbooks also that can go along with the program. It is not necessary to purchase them, but if some people really want to work the workbook, that they're definitely available online at
Okay.
smartrecovery.org, the bookstore. And I do believe that you can download an electronic version as well.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to take a moment here and share a screen that you can talk about here. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's talk about this. Discover the power of choice. Okay, smart recovery, self-management, and recovery training. Okay, as you mentioned, it's a science-based addiction recovery support group where participants learn self-empowering techniques to aid their recovery through mutual help, face-to-face, and online meetings and services. No matter what your addiction, smart recovery tools and techniques can help you overcome the behavior. Okay, so it is not just it's not just for those with addiction to substances. Okay, other people with addiction issues can utilize this program as well, correct?
Correct. So it's for all kinds of addictive substances, as far as illicit drugs, even prescription drugs. It's
Mm-hmm.
also behaviors, from anywhere um, from I'm trying to think. I would say gambling,
Mm-hmm.
um, sex addict, eating disorders, self-harm. All those fall into the categories. Online, there are special meetings for that are closed. That when you go online, if that's an area that you need help with, that
Mm-hmm.
there are facilitators there as well. So again, yes, it's not just what we consider typical addiction, mainstream addiction. There's also other areas that people need help with. And so with it being focused on rational motor behavioral and cognitive behavioral, a lot is about behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we don't view addiction, we're neutral whether addiction is a disease or not a disease.
Okay.
We focus in on about what behaviors modifications there may need to be, and what triggers are and what urges are, and how to cope with those and how to overcome those. Yeah.
Got it. I understand. All right. So talk to me about the 4-point program.
Okay, so the first one is building and maintaining motivation. So with that, we go into we have several tools that help. So some of the specifics are on the right-hand side. Let me see if they have the hierarchy of value in there. They don't have the hierarchy of value listed on there. So the hierarchy of value was designed by one of the facilitators through Smart Recovery, who's very active and has participated greatly in the program itself. So with that, we figure out what is most important to us. We go into values and goals and clarify the difference. So what is the difference between a value and a goal, and short-term versus long-term? So again, that's the cost-benefit analysis on the right-hand side. So with the CBA, it's kind of like a comparison of pros versus cons, but not only do we look at the pros versus cons, we also delve into what are you getting out of your drug of choice. Short term, what do you get? What does it give you? So we're not afraid to talk about why we do it and what pleasures we get from it. But then we compare it to the long term effects that it may have, our behaviors may have on us personally and the people that we love and care about. And then we look at what do we have to give up short term in order to have long-term happiness and balanced life and satisfaction. So it's actually a 4-square worksheet. So we do major comparisons, and then with that, you can kind of say, oh, geez, maybe I social drink because I have anxiety and I'm very nervous when I want to go into a social situation. So the first thing I like to do is go to a bar and have a couple drinks to kind of help me calm down. But again, what is the definition of addiction? What is the definition of when moderation has turned into an issue? So those are all things that are up to the individual to figure out for themselves. And then what do you do? Okay, so you still want to go to your cousin's wedding. So how do you work through that anxiety, and what tips and tools do we need to bring forward for you to get through that event? So something that would be an example of point 2, coping with the urges. So we kind of segue over into each point.
Okay.
And so then point 2 would be coping with urges. So again, that would be looking at what would be the activating event. What is short-term gratification versus long-term gratification? What is actually an urge? What is a trigger? What can you do? How long do they last? So in some of those areas, we really break it apart to let people understand that just because you're having a thought does not necessarily mean a good or bad thing. It's a thought. Like going back to the wedding example. So now you have all your tools in place and you have your support person ready, and you're still feeling, geez, I want to go to the bar. You're going to have some tools, and you're going to have a plan of action. That just because you have that thought doesn't necessarily mean you failed. It's just a thought. So we help prepare for things, if that makes any sense. I'm kind of babbling here.
No, it does make sense to me. It truly does.
And then, go ahead.
Go ahead. Nope.
I was going to say, and then point 3, managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Again, we're going to focus in on what are your triggers. Is it an emotional trigger or is it a physical trigger? So an emotional trigger would be maybe getting in a fight with somebody, or somebody said something that you didn't like. A physical trigger could be simply pain. My back hurts. I'm not feeling very well. Things like that. An emotional trigger also could be anxiety or depression, feeling of helplessness. All those, there's a whole gamut under, obviously, the different emotions.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So again, we kind of look at what the triggering activating event was.
Mm-hmm.
What is your feeling? That would be your ABC tool of the REBT. Okay. So again, what is your activating event? would be your A, your B is your belief, and your C is your consequence. And then even with that, we go a little bit deeper later on when people are very comfortable just with the activating event, the belief that they're telling themselves about that activating event, and the consequences.
I understand. So what I'm getting from this so far is that your program, you're not focusing on the addiction itself, but more the behaviors and what drives the addiction, or the thoughts, the feelings, the patterns that go with it, and basically deconstructing that, taking it apart and
Yes.
looking closely at, okay, so I
Part
know
of
I had an issue with this, but why did I? And how do I undo that?
Right. And again, going down the list to the disarm tool, the destructive image and self-awareness, in that, we give our addicted persona its own personality, its own, we'll even name it. In that tool, you name it. So that way we separate our authentic self that we've discovered who we are in the building and maintaining motivation. So who do I really want to be? What are my goals? What are my values? That's my authentic self. The addicted persona is the salesman in my head that is telling me I need to go drink when I go into a social event to calm myself, that I'm not capable of calming myself on my own, that I need a substance to relax. Okay, so that's one example. I'm just using one example.
Okay.
So with that, we do like to separate who they are. So again, family members fall into the same category. We can have a personality that comes out in us that we may not be very proud of when we're arguing with our loved one. Mm-hmm. So again, I say when a family member's addicted persona talks to the addicted persona of their loved one under the influence, nothing good can come of that conversation. Okay, so again, we try to separate what is helpful and what isn't helpful. Mm-hmm. When is the time to have this conversation?
Right.
And kind of calm everything down. We try to calm things down and be constructive. Mm-hmm. Some of the other tools there, let's see, there's brainstorming. So brainstorming is really when you throw it back to the group and you just say, hey, everybody, let's have a conversation around, Jill brought up this situation she's dealing with. What has your past experience been, and what tools have been helpful for you? So again, we encourage the dialogue and people to share amongst themselves of their personal experiences and why it's helpful. Mm-hmm. We can even role play. Again, I go back to the wedding situation. We can role play. Maybe you have that cousin that you haven't seen since you were 17 or 18, and he's still really into the party scene, and you know darn well he's going to walk up to you with a shot in his hand and demand that you drink that with him. So let's role play that out. Let's figure out how you can get away from that situation sober. So again, that might be a brainstorming and role player as a group activity to bring everybody together and to come up with some solutions for this situation. So again, it's not up to me to come up with anybody's answer. It's really not. It's up to the individual to understand themselves enough and understand the situation that they're going to be entering to hopefully come out the other side successful. And if they don't, that's fine. Then we talk about why a relapse happened. We use the stages of change. So again, we're not afraid to talk about relapses. You're not ashamed. You're never shamed for a relapse, ever. Ever is it considered a start over, or do-over, or you failed, or there's nothing, no judgment on that whatsoever.
I love that point. I truly do. I think
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's a lot of shame and addiction in general, whether it be the person who has the addiction or it be the family member who's ashamed of what is going on and doesn't want to speak about it. And I like the idea of just neutralizing that and saying, you know what, okay, it is what it is, but let's move forward anyway. Is that kind of the approach that you're taking?
Yes, and so again, that would be another, the ABC tool is a wonderful tool for many, many decision making. Kind of look at the activating event, what happened,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I, I'm gonna, I can say, was maybe it just happened, maybe, okay, back to the wedding, and you're at your cousin, he comes up, he brings the shot, and you were able to say no, and of course, that's where we always want to land. What if it was just like second nature and you kicked the shot back just because it just felt normal? Okay.
Yeah.
Was that a relapse? Was that a slip? What if you didn't drink anymore for the rest of the night?
Mm-hmm.
What if you walked away and said, oh, wow, that was a close call? Again, I tell people to go back to the original definition of what is addiction, what is recovery, what is a lapse, what is a relapse, what is a slip, and really that's gauge it. Let's not make it an all or nothing success or failure. Let's bring a little DBT in here in the gray area. Really, where did this fall in the continuum of your recovery path? So,
yeah, that's again, I think those are some things that can truly, truly be helpful in helping a person along their road. The one thing I did want to bring up is, I know you've mentioned this to me, it is not a 12-step program, but yet confidentiality is maintained throughout this program. So even though you're meeting within a group environment, the expectation is that whatever discussion occurs in that environment stays within that group of people.
yes, correct. And so along with that, people, that journal, studies have shown are more successful long-term recovery. So people can journal, bring a notebook, but they have to write about themselves. And I will check if I feel that there's something going on. But the whole program is structured that we don't go into the negative. We don't go into the confession of failure or things like that. We don't get into the war stories. It's all positive construction. This was my trigger. This was my activating event. This is how I felt during the time, and this is how I reacted to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we really do not go deep into that, and people don't have to participate. They don't have to name their drug of choice. They don't even have to say why they're there. The only thing that is kind of like it is new with the peer movement is if there's an employee that is a peer who is assisting their client in the meeting, we do ask that they self-identify, and we will most likely ask them to sit in the car. And it's not because of, it's just a gray area. We have to protect our group. We have to make sure that there is an environment of complete and utter honesty, where if somebody has possibly going to be taking notes on the person and bringing it back and putting it in their chart, it's kind of a gray area. It's a new endeavor. I personally will ask thank the people for bringing them to the meeting, and ask them to sit in the car. And because it's not just about the person that they brought, it's also about the other participants. I don't know how comfortable they would feel, and I don't want anybody shutting down on me. So
Right. No, you certainly don't. That's not why you have them there. All right.
and
Let's talk. Go
We
ahead.
forgot about the balanced life.
I was going to say,
So,
let's get back to living a balanced life. Let's talk
okay.
about
So the balanced life is really about coming up with and discovering the things that you lost during the addiction. So you have all this time now. There's a lot of time and effort went into to the addiction, and so now, what do I really enjoy? What music do I like? So what hobbies have I lost? Maybe hobbies I want to start back up. So again, that's the fun portion. Um, the other self-assessment portion is we have the people, it's a circle with 8 spots along the outer edge of the circle, and they break it apart. So I'm a mom, I'm a worker, I have pets, I have education, I have sobriety, I have probation, I have um, meetings that I have to attend. So again, and then on that is a scale of 0 to 10. And how much time do you think you put towards that? So you want to have a perfect circle, but most of the time it's all jaggedy and things like that. So again, when somebody's taking on a new endeavor, they say, I want to do something. Well, let's even see if you have room in your schedule to do that in the first place, or is that going to cause more anxiety for you? Maybe you're putting in too much at work and you're ignoring your family life, or your family life is suffering. How can we move that 8 of the work life and the number 2 of the family life, and how can we maybe balance that? What steps can you take? Where is it in maybe this Friday you can take your whole family out to a movie. Maybe you can work on your relationships. So again, we go in and we try to find ways to balance your life to reduce the stressors. And we use this whole chart. Everything's all charted out. So again, it's little time, little money. No, wait a minute. No, it's no time, no money. Little time, little money. Time and money. And then again, you're grandiose. So like if you had all the money in the world and you had all the time in the world, what would you do? Yeah. So again, we break it apart. Maybe you are working on self-care. Maybe you are working some of these things and you're just not aware. But again, with breaking that apart, those times are no addiction talk zones. So meaning you don't talk about your addiction. You don't talk about your loved one's addiction.
Okay.
You don't want to ambush your loved one if you invite them out for coffee and you're working on your relationship and reestablishing communication. You don't want to use that date for coffee to ambush them and start lecturing them about why you think they need to have lifestyle changes. That's not going to really help. People are not going to get what they want. And unfortunately, it just kind of kicks the can of division down the road.
Understood. Okay, so we're pretty much looking at a program that is non-judgmental. You're really helping people to identify their own personal triggers as well as establish goals, find some balance in life, whatever that's through, whichever way. Looking for ways to set boundaries. Okay, that's another issue that we had discussed. Self-care, mindfulness, clarity. All these things are part of what you're working on within this program. I think the important thing to bring up here is this is not just a program for those who is an individual in recovery. This program, you also have part of the component is the friends and family part of that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I did. So again, with friends and family, we utilize the 4 Points program from Smart Recovery, and then we're also influenced by CRAFT, which was developed by Dr. Bob Myers, and that is community reinforcement and family training. So again, it's a lot different than the 12-step, and this is where it gets a little sticky because it's not what people are being told to do by professionals and things like that, and other supports possibly. Mainstream's accepting it a little bit more. But again, we don't believe in tough love. Not at all. Okay. So we work on self-empowering. We work on, the motto statement is we don't win on the basis of our argument. We win on the basis of our relationship. Okay. So we reinforce the relationship. We catch them being good. We enforce the love. We don't use, again, you bring in boundaries. You bring in all kinds of things. But we also explore ourselves as family members. What is our personal agenda? What belongs to us and what belongs to our loved one? Of course, people want their loved one to be sober right now, okay? So we spend a lot of time in frustration and energy and arguing, trying to put our agenda on somebody else's recovery timeline. Their recovery timeline belongs to them. Okay, so what do? How do we function through that? How do we deal with that pain? How do we control ourselves so we can have function and we can take care of other family members and we can function at work and we can have a balanced life ourselves? Mm-hmm. So a lot goes into communication, listening skills, safety and supports. We do a chapter on that. When to have the conversation, map a lot of things out, and again, reward our loved one when they're sober and they're with us, and enjoy that day.
Right. Well, I think you kind of, in a roundabout way, said it in there. When it comes to being that family member or even that friend, self-care is absolutely vital. Okay.
Self-care is so important.
It is so important. And sometimes people feel as if they're being selfish if they take the time for themselves, when in fact it's the least selfish thing they can do, because when you're taking good care of yourself, you are definitely the better person to help whoever the person is that you're trying to support in recovery. So I think that's something that's extremely important. And boundary setting, as you mentioned, boundary setting, that's another big deal. That's important. And a lot of times, at least in my experience of all that I've seen, that, boundaries get crossed all the time and they get mixed up. So I can imagine that being a component that's really important in your program.
And we use the hula hoop analogy. So again, you'll often hear in a group the hula hoop analogy. So we each have a hula hoop around ourselves, and we're merrily hula hooping around. So when somebody jumps into another person's hula hoop, you can't hula hoop with two people in a hula hoop. You can't hula hoop when you're too close in a hula hoop. So there is that boundary. So again, boundaries are not a weapon. Boundaries are not an ultimatum. Boundaries are not you better do this and stay here or else. No, boundaries are up to the family members, and based off of what is your goal, what is your value, what bothers you, what doesn't bother you, and it's up to you to maintain your boundary. You can't so we tend to let our hula hoop fall and then jump into our loved one's hula hoop and start putting these demands on them. And rightfully so. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. Of course we want them to be well. Of course we want them. But again, is it helpful? Is this the best approach? Is there another way? Mm-hmm. So again, it's like, get back into your hula hoop. You're in your hula hoop. Whose hula hoop are you in? So you'll often hear that. And it's so funny because when my family first started using that, it just calmed arguments, because all of a sudden it would be like, you're in my hula hoop. And I'd be like,
Okay.
it was hilarious. And it's really fine when you tell somebody else to get out of your hula hoop, but when
Right.
somebody tells you to get out of their hula hoop, you're like, well, wait a minute, So it's a nice way to say, hang on a second, like we're getting to a possible situation.
Right. Right.
um, and
Well,
then sorting it out, and then we just kind of work through it.
yeah.
And
No,
we,
and I love that analogy, actually. I think that's great,
yeah.
All right, now you have some other stuff going on outside of the groups and individual what you're doing with the recovery, smart recovery. Let's talk about the other component that you're working with.
Okay, so right now with COVID, my face-to-face meetings are on hiatus, and I refer the families mostly to the Rochester, because I'm in Wyoming County, so I refer the meetings to the Rochester facilitator, and she hosts meetings on Monday nights. So with that being said, smartrecovery.org has meetings. There's a schedule, and there's meetings that you can attend, Zoom meetings online, or just talk in meetings. There's all different formats. And also the local meetings, some have converted over to Zoom, so you could still put in your location and hopefully find a meeting near you, if you want to stay with local people. So with that being said, I've been working with the Wyoming County Sheriff's Department and the Wyoming County Jail as a volunteer for their programmings. And again, they do a phenomenal job there. They have multiple people coming in and offering all kinds of programs for the people that are incarcerated. They get their GED, they get parenting classes, they spiritual advisement comes in, just all kinds of programs. There's so many, I can't even list them all. But anyway, I'm one of many. And so I've been doing this for, I think, since the end of 2015, weekly meetings in the jail. And so I bring them Smart Recovery. And so Smart Recovery just came out with a new program, I think back in, what did I say in your notes? 2000 or 9, what was it? 1994. They started with
1994, right.
the first Smart Recovery meeting in a jail setting, and then in 2000 they got a grant from NIA to develop the Inside Out program. Okay, so now this is in various states across the United States. So I just got an email yesterday. I'll try to pull it up. I'm going to swing it off the top of my head. So now it's going to be going into India, London, Haiti, Denmark, and I'm forgetting one, aren't I?
Yeah, I can't remember
I can't
either.
remember, but it's overseas. It's already in Scotland and England and things like that. So Texas utilizes it, Pennsylvania, a lot of states utilize the Inside Out program. So the original Inside Out program was made for corrections, which is different, that state prison versus jails. I work with the jail population, which is a county jail, which is under a year. So we just received a new program. It's called, I don't know if you could pull it up, but I'll hold the book up.
There you go.
And this is the Learn Smart Inside Out Fast. This is geared towards incarcerated people under a year. So if they're serving under a year, this particular program is broke out into 12 sessions versus the Inside Out was 24. This particular book with the geese on it is for youth and young adults, okay? So then along with this one, we just came out and developed this one, a course for successful life skills, and this has the dove on it. And this is for adults, and this has an added component of life skills. So this also goes into maybe helping somebody discover a vocation, how to balance a checkbook, how to just manage more adult life skills along with the smart recovery component. It also does go into criminal behavior, maladaptive behavioral thinking. I think both books kind of address that, not very deeply, but to challenge again somebody's thoughts and reactions using the ABC tool. And again, somebody in an incarcerated situation can get very upset when they don't get a visit. Let's put something like that. So they hang on to a visit, and they, with limited communication, they don't realize that maybe their family member's car broke down and they did try to visit, but they had a situation that they couldn't make it there. So it's very upsetting. So how do you deal with that in that situation? So it's more geared towards those kind of disappointments and issues that they may experience in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to invite the families to at least look into Smart Recovery Family and Friends program online. I can work with the friends and family component also, but again, there's a trust issue. So I think that maybe if they want to just go online and attend a meeting, and or at least look into the information online, and learn something about what their loved one is going through and learning, and the skills that they're coming up with and learning, so as they re-enter. So we marry well with the transitional services in the jail. Most jails have that. I'm now also doing a Zoom meeting with this for the Monroe County Jail. I'm in my 14th week with them since the COVID. So again, the participants get a certificate of completion when they're done. So it's really goal oriented. So yeah, I'm very excited to bring this to this component forward for my community. Definitely.
Yeah, no, that's truly awesome because, this doesn't happen in a isolated spot. And when I can imagine, if you're in jail and you actually have someone who is working with you, helping you to begin to think differently and to start setting some goals for yourself to prepare you for when you leave there versus doing nothing, that's really helping you to be in a better place when you are back out into the community. So I think that's wonderful.
And I'm always available for the people that have attended my groups when they return. I'm always available. If my motto with people are, if I'm up, I'll answer. So again, I kind of wear that not under the Smart Recovery hat, but under my recovery coach hat. I do not charge anything. Everything is free. I just try to help them in a moment and then help them find resources. And that's where I understand, like, part of the training for becoming a facilitator is understanding the resources in your community. So that's why a lot of people know who I am, because I like to do soft handoffs. So I won't just give somebody a phone number and say, call, see you later. I will say, I'll go to the appointment with you. You can use my cell phone to make the phone call if you don't have a cell phone. Let's handle this together. I'll take you to DSS. I'll sit in there with you to help you understand how to help with the forms and things like that. So where to get WIC, maybe it's a grandparent and they need help. I've talked about it before, and connecting them with the services at Office of the Aging. I mean, there's so many community-based supports out there that why reinvent the wheel? Let's jump in and partner up with community action, with independent living, with with ministries that are around. So getting to understand your community what resources are available, both through a 501 and through the state agencies. There's a lot out there for people. There's a lot of people that want to help.
Yeah, there really is. But I think the point of this is that they have to have somebody who knows how to tap into those resources or where to send them, because so many
Yeah.
people just don't know. I, where do I go for this? Where do I go for that? And unless they have somebody who can help them to find the answers, they're going to be
Yeah.
stuck. Whether it's a housing issue, an education issue, food, whatever it is. So, well,
Yeah.
Jerianne, I really, really appreciate you being here with us. I truly do.
Thank you.
I think you've offered some honestly valuable information. And I just want to say thank you. I'll get you.
Thank you. And I really appreciate everything Colton Journey is doing for everybody, being that information hub. I mean, ending on that, I mean, what a wonderful organization, because it's a needed component. People really, when you're in the swirl of it all, it's so hard to find that door. How do you get help?
Mm-hmm.
So it's your organization is so important to help people be that linkage, and I really appreciate all you do for everybody as well. So
Thank you. Colton's Journey is working very hard at it. In fact, recently we had updated our website, cjtol.com, and we will be adding more and more resources. We finally got that up and running. It took a little longer than we thought, but now that it's up and running, we'll be getting more, resources. In fact, I have to tap into you for a couple of them.
okay,
More
I'll be
information.
there.
But anyway, thank you everyone for being here with us today. I hope you enjoyed getting this information as much as I have. Have a wonderful week.
All right, thank you. Be well.
You too. Bye-bye.